Hi there, guys. How's it going? It's your YouTube loser Schizoid Angst here again to do another conversation with a person that's far more interesting than me. So, as I don't find myself all that interesting, to be honest. And today, I will be here with Magenta. Is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Magenta will be speaking to me on a few topics, and I'm going to have a few questions to ask. And it's going to be a casual thing as usual, just two people talking about their mental health issues in a very aloof manner, because that's what we do. That's what we Zoids do. We like to be aloof. It makes the pain easier. But in any case, I would like if you could, Magenta, to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, just basics, like you know what you're about, where do you live, that kind of stuff, and I guess what makes you you to a degree.
Yeah. So I live in the UK, in the north of the UK, and um, I I guess I'm a bit of a Zoid, like other people,
Oh yeah.
kind of, yeah,
No, it's
kind of
okay. No, it's all good. I
socially
mean, considering that,
socially
like, awkward. Yeah.
yeah, socially awkward, socially averted.
Oh man, I'm super socially awkward. You just the only reason I'm not right now is because this is digital and I don't actually see
Mm.
anyone. So I'd probably be a lot quieter and more meek and stranger in person. But who knows? I don't know. Or I'd end up masking up super hard. But
Mm.
who knows? Go ahead, continue. I interrupted.
Oh, it's okay. Um, yeah, I I like music and I collect records. And I enjoy, I kind of enjoy programming. Like I'm a bit of a nerd, and that's what I do for my job.
We're all nerds
Um,
here,
uh,
like one way or another.
and and it's also a way to earn a living whilst having as little social interaction as possible as well.
Oh, why do you think I'm doing this right now? Like I'm literally doing this right now with you because of that. That's like one of the fundamental reasons. If you want to ask me my selfish reason for all this, like my non-altruistic reason, it would definitely be that. It's like, oh, cool. Can I just like work do this part time so I could not have to work very much with people? That'd be wonderful. Like that'd be glorious. And that's why I do it. Anything else you want to mention regarding anything? I don't care. Or if you're done, I can move
uh,
on.
I think I'm done as like an introduction.
Okay, cool.
Uh, yeah.
All right. So, no one needs an introduction to me if they've already listened to my shit. If you haven't listened to my shit before, continue listening to this, and listen to some of the other conversations I've had, and like, subscribe, and all that other bullshit that people, expect you to do. Okay. So the first question I have for you, Magenta, is let's see here. What are your thoughts regarding mental health stigma or mental health treatment and that sort of stuff in Britain? I'm just curious because obviously from nation to nation, you're going to have completely different cultures. You're going to have totally different views on it, and even in regions. So I mean, it could be regional one way, and in another part of Britain a different way, a different position. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so over the last say couple of decades, I think it's definitely that the awareness is improving. So you hear a lot more about mental health issues
Hmm.
in the media, and also you hear other people talking about mental health issues, and to a certain extent the treatment has improved too. The But I'd still say it's quite limited in terms of what can be provided, because we have the NHS here, like
Yeah.
the public health system,
Yeah, to the people that
and
don't know what the NHS is, could you just
mm,
give them a basic? Yeah. Sorry.
yeah, so it's a healthcare system that's free at the point of need, which means that if you have a health condition, you it doesn't cost you anything apart from what you contribute in towards like in your taxes basically,
Hmm.
or like the national insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, just
and yeah, that's the NHS.
okay. Well, that's good. And what I'm curious to like what limitations you were kind of mentioning some of the limitations when it comes to mental health or what people are willing to like help with or what's available. What limitations would you say exist?
uh, so most treatment is provisioned via your GP, and
Hmm.
like they're quite quick to lean on medication as a solution because it's reasonably cheap, I guess.
Hmm.
The sort of talking therapies, although they are available, there's a lot more of a waiting list or a waiting time.
Oh, it sounds
And
like the United States as
yeah,
well. We have that similar right there.
yeah,
Medi-Cal, Medicare, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they prefer to
yeah,
pump you full of drugs before anything else. Our pharmaceutical
yeah.
overlords.
And why there is sort of provision and support, it it's definitely a bit of a postcode lottery. Like it depends on where you live.
um,
Um, mm,
what were like if you could describe maybe an experience or two that you had with the I guess the NHS or whatever that maybe other people in that region that are listening or otherwise might be able to relate to when it comes to like experiences or some of the limitations or issues that come with it.
yeah, certainly. So like with through like I've had quite a few issues with GPs before, like in terms of like getting prescriptions fulfilled. Like sometimes uh that and issues with um
How about like therapists or psychs or anything like that? Have you ever had any
yeah,
bad encounters or issues because of the way it's handled?
I wouldn't say bad, but
Hmm.
I'd say at times it hasn't really been that useful because they've been quite narrow in terms of what they are looking for. Like it's very
Hmm.
focused on like your like, acute feelings, so like your like depression or anxiety,
Yes.
but then they don't really dive into the details, into the things that might be causing
And when you have
depression and
when you have
anxiety.
yeah, when you have Zoid traits, it's kind of more difficult, more complex than just saying I'm very, very sad or I am very, very anxious. A lot of those feelings are tied to a very complicated process in which sometimes you barely feel those feels. Is
Mm,
right. If I'm guessing, is that the sort of the complexity you're kind of describing, or like some that they can't get into the
yeah,
nitty gritty?
yeah, and I think at times it often feels like they ask a lot of questions, and I know that therapists need to do this in order to collect information and
Hmm.
to kind of process it.
The
But some
history.
for yeah, for a Zoid it feels quite intrusive
Oh
because
man, tell me about
the,
it. Like I had to
it
like interrogate
yeah,
my own psych. I totally get it. Just to want to even begin to tell them anything about me. It's like a give and
yeah.
take. It's like I had
So
to intrude
it's
on
that.
them. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, no, it's okay. I
I'm a
think there's a little bit
loudmouth.
of a delay.
No, it's okay. I'm a loudmouth. Just okay. I am now not speaking. Continue.
um. So yeah, like instead of it being a two-way like mutual conversation, sometimes it'll feel like they're running off a script, and it feels like kind of like an interrogation at times.
Hmm.
And that can be it can feel overwhelming, and I have a tendency to shut off when that happens and maybe not be as open as uh, I should be to be of use.
In other words, people, be happy we're even getting this conversation at all. It's a good. We cherish it. Cherish the fact that it exists, please, because it is useful. But
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
we did talk for I think maybe half an hour before the
Yeah.
call.
Well, yeah, because I'm all about just trying to help. Like I don't want to put
Yeah,
anybody in a weird position where they don't feel like saying shit, and then like they have a fucking meltdown later at some point because I like pushed them into a corner or something crazy. Like that's not what I'm about, man. Fuck that noise. Somebody tried to do that to me and fucking slug them. Um, yeah, I totally get it. I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly myself sometimes when it comes to specific, very specific things. So anxiety and distress, I do completely understand. Um, in any case, I want to move on to this next sort of question. And this one's more of a softball, so you get to just enjoy it. Um, you have a deep fascination with music. How did your connection to music develop, even with the anhedonia and the lack of motivation that comes with schizoid and schizoid traits? How would you say music was felt?
yeah. Uh, I think it's a bit of an escape for me, to be honest.
Hmm.
Like it's a way, like, because music can be so many different things for so many different people. But for me, it's a thing to enjoy in private or in my own head, and it's a way to experience emotions without the directness of maybe speaking to people.
The
So
proxy.
and I yeah, like
Yeah.
and it's a way to like relate to other people too, to like people's experiences and to different ideas or or people's even people's own expression, self-expression. Because when I speak to people in person, it can feel like there's this like transfer of energy between us,
It's
and that can
exhausting.
feel yeah, it's exhausting, but also uh it feels invasive.
Hmm. Oh yeah, I totally get that one.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about music too, I mean, what's kind of funny, is because I'm glad you said that because that's exactly how I feel about music. I use it as a proxy to actually attempt to feel or connect to emotional aspects of myself that are otherwise out of reach, or very very difficult to pinpoint, in some respect or another. Or I use it as a catharsis to release a negative emotion that perhaps is haunting me at that given moment. It's very useful for that purpose. But yeah, the whole proxy thing. I think a lot of us have hobbies that are kind of proxy related like that. I kind of do similarly with comics or video games in some respects. Especially, I'm fascinated with narratives, and my main focus usually with music is oftentimes like lyrics. But what I find funny, and I just want your thought on this, is I find it strange because conversation, especially with somebody that you're not familiar with, can feel intrusive, especially when they're trying to find out things about you or asking questions about you, and they're almost expecting you to do the same. But music is interesting in that it's almost more intrusive because I guess it's not intrusive because you're letting it in, but it actually goes in a lot deeper to some respects than any conversation could. What do you think?
Um yeah, I think the thing that I feel is intrusive about conversations with people,
Mm-hmm.
it's more that they can see inside of my head or that they can access, because like I tend to suffer from like magical thinking a lot, where if I'm like in a room with another person, the
Mm-hmm.
thought I feel as if they can read the thoughts inside my head, because there isn't like this clear separation between, okay, these are the thoughts that are happening in my head, and this is like the environment that I'm in.
I see.
So yeah, so I it like I tend to like assume that people know what I'm talking about, even though I haven't verbalized it.
Ooh, I think I know what you're talking about. Not like actual. telepathy. It's more. I see what
Yeah.
you're describing. I do this all the time. It's where you talk to someone about something, and you make a lot of assumptions about your external world and what other people understand, and then oftentimes it leads to miscommunications. And when those miscommunications occur, they kind of throw us into disarray or confusion. Because we make assumptions about the conversation that no one else around us is making or even understands. So,
Yeah, and those are the only times. Those are those types of like miscommunications. Are like those are the only times where like I realize what I'm doing.
and then
It's
you're
just
just
like,
like, what the fuck? What's happening? I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. Right? Is that how that feels?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
uh, I might be confused why someone because I work in with software,
Hmm.
and I before the pandemic I were in the office environment, and sometimes I'd have to speak with someone about a particular project,
Okay.
um, and they'll think that like we'll have a conversation,
Hmm.
and I think I've explained things very clearly, but they they often don't. That they there's like gaps in it for them, and I
maybe
think that's
maybe your
when,
brain is just
yeah.
too big. You ever think of that? Just
No,
too
that's
too
definitely not
too big
true.
brain. I think
That's
that's what happens with
not
me. My
true.
brain is too big, and my thinking is just so cool and so complex that no one else can fathom my awesome words. No, I know that's an awesome delusion though that we often trick ourselves. You don't seem to do that, but I've done that at certain points in my life when I was younger. That I deluded myself into thinking like because you start creating rationalizations or excuses for why people aren't understanding you, and oftentimes it turns into like hostility or resentment toward others, or it turns into a rejection of the self or resentment toward the self, because you think the external world isn't understanding you or able to comprehend your words. So it turns into two variations. That's one of the biggest, I think, schisms in the schizoid world is the manner in which we rationalize or intellectualize those miscommunications between ourselves and people around us. Because I've met both the ones that start rejecting the self, or those that want to impose the self or the constructed self onto others, essentially implying that everyone else is wrong and you are the strong, smart, big brain. which cracks me up. So that's why I wanted to mention that. I thought that was funny. Um, but yeah, I'm glad you threw that in there. That's very interesting. And I just like things like interests and hobbies and how they like can almost become. It's weird. Like, yeah, your thought on this. Do you think that maybe we sometimes like connect to things that aren't other human beings in is almost like a replacement to being able to connect emotionally to something like like
Yeah, almost 100%. I do that with music a lot, for sure. And I use it as because I think Zoids we can have a quite a like uh I mean we tend to like dissociate and almost like daydream,
mm-hmm.
and music I guess is like facilitates that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can, and I'm just thinking because like I do similar, but I don't do it with music. Like
Mm,
I just enjoy music as like a proxy on occasion, but like you seem to
mm,
have a slightly deeper connection to it, obviously, not slightly, heavily deeper. I would say my connection to something that is intangible, that I seem to like connect with, or I ended up connecting to in place of like other human beings, was the concepts, ideas.
mm,
Concepts I've always been like, and I'm talking like narratives. So if we're talking fiction or nonfiction or whatever, just concepts and narratives have always been the thing that I've emotionally connected myself to. And and I think maybe a lot of Zoids do that. They find something that they try to attach themselves to in replacement for the normal stuff that I guess people generally do that with. And like and it's odd because it's been a difficult path for me to try to figure out to see people as not concepts, like to see people as just
Mm,
separate individual human beings, like sentient. Like I have a trouble seeing people like that. I see them as like characters in a play or a narrative that plays out with
mm.
specific traits and so on and so forth. Like
D-
and
y-
go ahead.
do you feel like that ties in with how we can have like internal representations of people, like
Mm-hmm.
because quite often I'll have conversations with other people, but it happens inside my head.
Oh yeah, you can have
Like
a
it,
full conversation with the conceptual build of that person in your head.
yeah, and like sometimes I'll go and meet that person and I'll talk to them as if as if that conversation had actually happened has actually
Oh
happened,
man, I've had
and it
that
can
one
be quite
happen.
confusing.
No, I've had that happen many times. It in my case, oftentimes, okay, I'll start a conversation with one person, and the conversation will continue at some point or another in my head, and then later when I speak to them once more, I'll continue the conversation where I believe it left off. But they'll look at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I do that to my poor wife constantly. She hates it because like I'll just walk up to her and be like, "But you know what? I disagree with that. I don't think that this and this and this and that regarding this is true." And then she'll be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And I'll be like, "Oh, the thing we were talking about." She's like, "That was yesterday." Like, like why would you think that I can just pick it up right where it left off? And I'm like, "But I can." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not you." And she's like, she tells me that. I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Fuck." Like, so we have this like weird kind of thinking that we end up applying to other people. It's a very self-centered and not in a bad way sort of thinking. Like we make this strange assumption and project other people's cognitive abilities or mannerisms to others. Like because unfortunately, due to the lack of connection, I believe that we make with other people, we only like know these constructs of or concepts that we create about what those people are inside our heads because we never actually like learn who they are like as actual people, which is really funny to me. But it's part of the stumble. It's part of the problem, and it's part of why it leads to a lot of miscommunication and strange behavior. Um, especially when the most difficult part is when the person themselves runs contrary or does something that doesn't correlate with what your concept of that person is already. That throws us off completely. I find like when somebody does something that we believe is out of character. uh,
Yeah, because I think we like it's like yeah it like it I like to think that I have a when like everything is under control, and
mm-hmm.
like everything is like it has like a predictability or like a pattern to it. And
Yeah.
if other people behave kind of unexpectedly, I have to like check myself almost and like my understanding of things.
And maybe that's why you have such an interest in programming. It makes more sense than people. Because
Yeah, there's more of an order to it, and like computers, you program them, and
this happens when
it's
that
like
happens. It's math.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's mathematics to a point. Unless we start getting into the whole quantum thing, then things get real bananas. But in any case,
People are crazy.
yeah. But people are. But that's the thing. People are crazy. That it really should be said more like that. Because oftentimes it feels like they're crazy, and I think what we have to do is kind of meet them in the middle. Maybe they're crazy. Maybe they're really crazy, and we're not crazy enough. I don't know. And then we just kind of have to meet them in the middle at some point or another. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one here. Um, okay, so this is the hardball. Get ready. I'm kidding. I don't care. Um, okay, number three. Being a trans woman, you already deal with multitude of personal dilemmas that come with that. How does being schizoid affect all this, or your perceptions of all that, identifiers and the such? How does it change the context? How do you think it affects how you deal with certain issues in comparison to non-schizoid people with the same ones? Okay, your interpretations or your perceptions of the world in association to it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, for the most part, like I see them as being like two separate things in my life, like two separate parts of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I had experiences where like I think that being schizoid means that I find it hard to relate to like a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So like I even though like I'm trans, I feel like I don't relate to like the trans community in like air quotes because like there's like an expectation that you have to act and think in a certain way to be a part of the group,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it can get quite political, and I feel like, yeah, I feel like I just want to be me and exist in the world, and
That's already hard enough as it is, right?
yeah, it's already hard enough as it is, and
Like,
I
fuck all the other noise.
yeah, and it's hard for a lot of people in this like modern society, I think,
Mm-hmm.
um, because everyone is so sort of like focused on their self,
Mm-hmm.
that it's hard to have a relaxed conversation with like people that you would meet on a daily basis.
That maybe would have a similar like whatever interest or issue or whatever you want to call it. Like I just find it funny because like I think about it and I go, yeah, like I have trouble enough. Like it's bad enough. Like this is how I like to see it. There's already a set of dilemmas that exist being someone that is trans. Like there's already certain issues, certain dilemmas, certain social stigmas, certain whatever, what have you. The things we already heard about, everyone's talked about it, everyone's familiar with at this point. Not everyone, but it's the thing that people talk about. And then you add another layer of that where you can't even connect to that very already marginalized sort of community to begin with. Like it just adds another
Mm.
layer of isolation, right? Would you say so?
Yeah, I think like I see it as being like I see it as being kind of unfortunate as well, because like I would I really would like to have, like, I feel bad that I can't act with solidarity, and like, there's lots of other people that are feeling have or at least have similar experiences to me, and I feel like I should be able to like be supportive
And
and like to be and or at least be visible and be relatable, but at the same time, the a lot of the like in the political space, it's been so toxic and poisonous that I feel like I don't want to put myself out there, because putting myself out there is already scary enough as it is.
yeah, just
Being
to
as
begin
losing
with,
everything. Yeah, that to do it in like a context where people are like,
hostile.
yeah, hostile and like negative. I feel like I don't want that, like it's too much.
So, and I
Uh
absolutely get it. Like to
yeah.
say the least. I mean, that's how it was for me. Obviously a different situation, but like when it came to like academia, the whole time I was at uni, I felt like I couldn't bring up certain topics or discuss certain things because the moment I did, it would be an issue. And I wasn't like trying to push any political view or specific bias in my favor. I had legitimate questions about various topics and things, and almost occasionally played devil's advocate for that purpose to learn and that never seems to be taken well by people that have a specific motivation. And it's sad because the way I see it in your situation, it's like, okay, well, what they are looking for as a community is inclusivity and acceptance and so on, right? And when they're literally doing the opposite within their own communities for political reasons, and that just seems like such a paradox to me. Like to disregard or be intolerant of individuals within your own community because of their thoughts or their behaviors or maybe some of their personal issues that make their way of thinking or their reasons different, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, those kinds of political issues aside, because like I know that there are a lot of like very vocal people who can maybe, and especially like the few that are extremely visible can make a like ha- because of how they uh act, it can like make everyone else look bad. And I'm thinking in terms of like the situations in like the universities with people like protesting at lectures and
mm-hmm.
in the US.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's plenty of
And
that.
most people aren't like that. Um, and you know, I'm aware of that. But I've been to like support groups before, and
Mm-hmm.
I just find it hard to relate to other people. And to and that isn't because like I we don't have similarities and things in common. It's just I tend like even though like
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's things in common, I just I can't, I find it hard to like be a part of a group, if that makes sense.
No, it makes absolute sense because the issue is not that there aren't similarities. Like, okay, so if you're in a room full of people, I'm gonna give a kind of a different example because that's what I do. If I was in a room full of people that really like bagels, okay, so it's a was it bagel addiction support group. So, and when you're in a group like that, yeah, you're gonna have a similar issue. But when you're a schizoid, you're gonna have certain disconnects about the way those people perceive their individual experiences, even though that one aspect of their experience is the same as yours. The way they interpret it will be understood by the people around them. Meanwhile, you're sitting there going, I don't quite understand what it is that you're so worked up about, or I don't quite understand your position on that. And if I ask any questions, it might be perceived by others as me being insensitive or, not allowing you to have your truth, quote unquote. So, and so that I think is that kind of what you're describing, like that kind of like we have this in common, but we have so much more not in common.
Yeah, and people inevitably make the people inevitably make it like about a lot more than the very like specific
Topic at hand.
topic
Yeah.
yeah, that at hand that people came to like discuss or support each other about
So yeah, well,
it.
we'll have like two or like you have a support group for something like that, and then you have like two people there that'll be arguing that it was like left or right wing politics that caused all these problems.
Yeah, like it inevitably goes on a tangent, and I think the whole concept of intersectionality, like I think that has, I mean, I think it has some validity, but it seems to be that people, it seems to be like more of the norm than the exception,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes it hard to just discuss like one specific topic, you know, when everything is kind of lumped in and it's treated as like this.
Mm-hmm. Assumptions are made,
Yeah,
straw men are created and easily destroyed. And no one
yeah,
no one steel mans anybody's position or argument, and there's no charitability too half the time for why you ask questions or why you're curious about this or why you disagree. Lack of charitability tends to kind of turn things into a spiral. And I honestly think that most people don't really enjoy quote unquote an echo chamber. And But the most vocal advocates and the most vocal people and the most assertive people tend to, I think so. And if you have like two or three assertive people in a group of 10 and the other seven are meeker or more passive, then they're going to dominate the flow of the conversation, right?
Yeah, and I think if you don't have a constraint on what is talked about or what the topic is, I think those vocal people are inevitably going to like add
Oh man.
more things into the group, and then and you know and then it feels hard to be a part of the group if you're not on board with those extra things that have been added on.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So last question here. And now that we got through some of the heavy shit, I want to ask you a little bit about your professional interests. You kind of brought it up, the programming and the such, but just how the your Zoid traits kind of conflict with your ability to either enjoy a job or don't conflict, or coworkers and things of that nature, things that other people relate to that have had a job or worked before, regardless of you can mention unique examples to your field, but just stuff like that, maybe a story or an anecdote of some kind of about a awkward or strange experience that would kind of maybe coalesce with the whole Zoid issue.
Yeah, so I've been in the software industry for about professionally for about 6 or 7 years, and I started I began with freelancing, and then my the last job I had, which I left like last year, towards the end of last year, I that was a permanent position, and it was like it was the first permanent position that I had, and I think I think being an employee of a company is a lot harder as a Zoid, because you're expected to there's a lot more expectations of how you should conduct yourself and how you should relate to other people. You have to toe the company line a lot more, and that means you have to mask more,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to like be a part of a team. And
How do you deal with
I
that personally? Like those.
um I mean, masking is part of the solution, but that's very tiring.
Oh yeah.
Um so like I tend to prefer like times where I can sit down, do my work, and kind of go home. So I think now I'm trying to lean more towards contracting, because it gives me the variety that I need, and I hope that like it can also I can view it more as like just a professional engagement rather than having to put so much energy into like how I come across and how I interact with other people.
I want to mention something very important that I don't think I've ever mentioned before. Um, the misconception that a person with a PD such as this one is lazy and unreasonable to be asked for, like unreasonable when asked to do things or accomplish things. And I don't think it's necessarily the case. It may be perceived that way. I think it's about context. Because I've already discussed and I talked to a lot of schizoids, and a lot of them have a good work ethic. It's just they don't want to do it within the context of what is normally considered to be a job or a social public sort of work position. Being in that kind of environment obviously will drain you. And if you're so busy focusing and expending all your energy on trying to survive all these social mechanisms throughout the workplace, how the fuck are you expected to have the potential to put in the hours and effort that is expected of you, or to supersede them, when you're so busy spending your energy in other avenues? So yes, if you put a Zoid in the right context and the right sort of job, they can flourish, in my opinion. Kind of like somebody had, I wasn't sure if it was on the server that you had or somebody mentioned, is open offices, was it? Right? Was it?
Yeah, there's like I think like over the past, I'd say maybe decade or so, there's been like a shift to open office environments, like open plan offices where there's no people aren't in separate rooms and there's not dividers between people. Everyone sits in the same area and it's just rows of sort of desks and people can walk and everyone is sort
Ugh.
of visible.
Ugh.
But it I mean the idea is that it's supposed to facilitate creativity and
Fuck
communication
that.
because but in reality it tends to increase the noise level of the room and have a lot more distractions.
It's funny too because
Um,
creatives need, a lot of creatives in general need like isolation and quiet. Like they don't need all the fucking chatter of the outside world, right?
yeah, I think it's been a complete failure. I think I don't think it's improved. Um, I don't think it's improved like the quality of the work that people do.
Uh,
If anything, I think it's decreasing that. I think it's harming productivity because of the increase in noise.
and maybe social interactions over work, and work
Yeah,
related interactions. I mean, and throw in the fact that you got the Zoid stuff, it's even fucking worse. Like you throw a Zoid into that situation, any creativity potential or ability they have is going to be stifled or hurt in some respect, um, because they're going to be too bothered or annoyed by everything, when in actuality all they want to do is work. They just want to focus on their job and do it and get the fuck out. And it just makes me laugh because like technically speaking, in a lot of respects, somebody that's a Zoid could be some of your best employees, but if you put them in conditions or that are just insufferable, they're not going to tend to be your best employees for that reason. They're going to be the ones that like do the minimal amount of effort, just to get out and go home, and when they it could in fact maybe put in much more effort, much more creativity, and much more competence into whatever they're doing if they had a slightly better environment to work in or a more isolated situation. I always did better at jobs that I didn't wasn't required to interact with people on a consistent basis, I would say.
yeah. Like one of the most frustrating things is being in an open plan office, doing your work, and then someone coming up to you and interrupting you and asking, "Oh, you know, what about this? What's your opinion on this other piece that we're doing? Because I need your advice on X, Y, and Z." And that it like immediately robs me of my concentration, and I'm having to like context switch between multiple things,
Uh,
multiple, and uh, usually then it means that it takes me quite a while to get back into the flow of doing what I were doing previously.
the flow or the zone, as some people like to call it, right? The
Yeah.
yeah, like you hone in on what you're doing, and then once you get into the flow of things, man, it's awesome. You get shit done, and quickly too, and you almost enjoy it. But when people
Mm,
detach you from it, and then you got to reattach, the process of reattaching is a difficult one, and it. I feel like the process of attaching to your concentration and then honing it for a specific task, it requires more energy and effort than once you do, and you're doing a continuous effort from that point. Um,
yeah, and I always felt that other people that I worked with, like my colleagues, they would often think that I just don't want to be a part of the team. You know, like
Uh,
or that I don't really care about the work that I'm doing. But I think but
that's
in
all you care
reality,
about.
well, yeah, I mean, I want to be held accountable for like my responsibilities, but uh, you know, I want to have a good work ethic, but I want to be able to also have boundaries respected where I can go and I have time to do the work and I'm not being interrupted all the time.
My favorite bosses I've ever had are the ones that do this, the ones that go, these are the tasks that need to be done. I need them completed by this time. I don't want you to do anything else but this task. Goodbye. That is my favorite type of boss. Like the ones that try to be
Yeah,
friends with me and buddy buddy and talk to me and try to motivate me and do this and do that. Oh man, those are the worst fucking bosses. And that's the thing. Like I get it. I think part of the problem is this lack of respect for different people's ways of being, and that there's this need within, like, whether it's corporations or whatever kind of business, to kind of uniform people, right, into like certain cubbies. Like this is how everyone should be at the workplace, and this is how everyone will be productive, and this is how everyone should act. And it destabilizes a lot of people in the workplace. And though those might work for one person, they definitely won't work for another. And there's a lot of people out there, I think, in the workplace that if you left them the fuck alone, you would see a rise in productivity or sales or whatever it is that they're working on. You would see an increase. And the more you badger them, the less, the more poorly they'll actually end up doing. Meanwhile, there's people that's vice versa. You need to badger them to get them going. So, and if you have people like that, honestly, you probably shouldn't be hiring them.
yeah. I think it's in like with the whole with the what like a lot of people working from home. There's been this concern that people will just slack off, and I think that's probably a realistic concern that managers have. But if that's the case and people actually don't want to be doing the work, I think that that doesn't. I think that's probably a sign of other things. I think people should be engaged with the work and should want to do it. It shouldn't be a matter of trying to um, scare people into doing the work. With like if you don't do the work, then you will have a performance review or something like that. It shouldn't be like fear based, and I think often it is.
What I find funny too is I think about it. It's almost like a conservative view of work, because it's like, when you talk to older people or people that pass, they say like, oh, when I worked, you went to your job, you shut your mouth, and you went home. Like it's like, can I go back in time? Like I want to go back to just shutting their mouths and doing their job and keeping to themselves. Like that sounds awesome. And I don't know, maybe this is a whole different a can of worms that I don't want to get into, but maybe something happened, like, like between individual freedom or workers' rights or what have you, and something happened between then people becoming so individualized when it comes to, like, I guess work type sort of freedom, that it turned into like a situation where it went too far. Like the boundaries like fell apart, and so now everyone thinks that the workplace is a social world. It's a social, like a hyper social interaction. Like it becomes like where you make friends, and where you find the person you fall in love with. Like the office, it turns into the office. And uh, and it's not the office, it's fucking real life, and you just have work to do, and you need to get it done, and it needs to be completed so that you can go home to your actual life where things matter to you more. So
Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
I
Um, I definitely prefer that.
no, yeah, well, I think we all do as far as the Zoids go. Okay, do you have any questions for me pertaining to anything, like as far as before I
I think yeah, I don't think I do, and
it's all
I
good.
could probably think of some, but.
Nah, don't think of
Uh,
something just on the
yeah.
spot just to fucking have a question. That's stupid. That would be a waste of time, especially if you're not actually curious about it. If you didn't already have a curiosity regarding myself, which I don't blame you. I'm rather boring. I wouldn't ask. But I do have one last little bonus question for you. Uh, what do you think of what I'm trying to do here with these kind of conversations? The Schizoid community sort of server, the Zoid Void, the channel, reaching out to people with other mental health issues and trying to find relatability. Whatever projects and stuff you've seen I've been working on, which is hilarious again because I busted my ass more effort wise with this project, with this whole YouTube thing, than I ever did like on any project I did at the university, which is so funny. Like I just find it so funny. Like there was like way more on the line, and I was like half-assing it half the time. And it's like it's bad when you graduate cum laude and you were half-assing it the entire time. And so like that's what I mean. What do you think anyway?
Oh, I think it's brilliant because, like, one of the uh, I I think there's importance, there's value in like having discourse with other people and talk and having sharing experiences. And for Zoids, it's quite hard to do that. And I think having the Discord server and using technology means that there's still a bit of a distance. It's not super invasive. People can communicate on their own terms, and there's been lots of sharing of ideas, and because there's not an awful lot of um, I mean, there's lots of literature, like
Yeah. Well, even
in
then,
like
there's not
psychology.
much. I mean, even then, it's
Yeah,
dicey because a lot of that shit, in my opinion, is all fucked. When it comes to Zoids, maybe
yeah,
not other shit, but when it comes to Zoids, it's all kinds of fucked up and causes all kinds of understandings.
yeah. I mean, but it's definitely not organized in any useful way. And the I sense that it's not really talked about in like in like the public sphere either. Um, so I think like the YouTube videos that you do is very useful because people might Google like schizoid, issue like or even things related to like social aversion,
Hmm.
and they might come across your channel and be able to relate to other people,
Yeah, even if they're
which
not
I think
a
is yeah.
yeah, even if they're not a schizoid, specifically, like that's why I'm kind of trying to this is kind of an offshoot, but um, the server itself is more schizoid focused. It's a community support server specifically
Mm,
for that. The channel is more directed toward that demographic as well as anybody else that might have similarities or interests in people like that. But that's also why I try to reach out, and I'm going to get some more conversations and stuff recorded, but I'm trying to reach out to people with other mental health issues. And I'm kind of just sort of taking my own sort of schizoid perspective on matters and then applying it to the questions I ask out of my own curiosity and then putting in my input about what I'm hearing, and seeing what relatabilities and correlations we can find, so that way, essentially, it's awareness through connection, if what have you. So, I don't know. That's kind of what I'm attempting, and I appreciate that you're saying that it's good, that it's helpful.
yeah, I've certainly got a lot out of it talking to other people, and sharing experience because it's helped me to understand myself better, and I hope that it helps for other people to understand their situation better and their own experiences.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, well, that about wraps it up, I think. One thing I do have to do is shill, of course. So you always have to shill, man. That's the only way. Like I gotta think. I'm dealing with an entire community of people like me, which are a bunch of people that don't want to do shit half the time. So when it comes to like, but hopefully you're interested enough whoever's listening is interested enough in this conversation, as well as seeing other conversations, as well as seeing me put out more stuff for the server. Even if you like the server more than the channel, whatever. Patreon, please support me there. It's fucking useful. Just do it. Don't ask why. Just do it. Like you're spending money on other stupid shit anyway. Just fucking help me out here. Who cares? God, it hurts just to say it, but just do it. And then PayPal. I have that too if you don't like the whole monthly bullshit or whatever. And if for those that do a certain tier on Patreon or whatever, I do have a part of the server, especially if you're Schizoid, in which you can make like more suggestions and other things like that as well. And I will have more features down the line pertaining to like tiers and whatever. But once I actually have substantial amount of people, not a crazy amount, but just more people that I can actually set up events or online digital kind of events and things like that for. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Magenta. It's been a pleasure.
Yep,
And
it's been a pleasure for me as well.
good. And everyone else out there, do whatever it is you were gonna fucking do today. Have fun.